Remember to turn on all notifications so you don't miss a video. Man, is he really that caught up? I ask if you talking about classics, do my name get brought up? I'm actually making this essay to challenge my own thoughts. Luffy vs Katakuri is my go-to fight for expressing why I don't like haki. But after thinking about it and reflecting on my Zoro vs Kaku analysis, I theorized that haki is still a problem, but One Piece's fights might have never been that good to begin with. I think I might have just put too much weight on the strategies in the crocodile and Enel fights. In my Zoro vs Kaku analysis, I mentioned what I'll call button mashing syndrome, which is where characters just throw out random attacks without much logic, usually because Oda's trying to show off new moves. I believe this is one of the biggest issues with One Piece fights alongside haki. In this analysis, I'll see if my theory is true. The fight starts in 877. Luffy uses Red Hawk and clashes with Katakuri's punch. They're both using haki and are equal. Luffy uses Hawk Gatling to overwhelm Kata with speed, but he turns into mochi. Luffy's arm gets stuck in Kata, allowing the latter to punch him. In 878, Luffy uses Gatling again, but follows up with an elephant gun. He grabs him and they both go into the mirror world. In 879, Luffy uses Hawk Gatling for the third time, but Katakuri counters with multiple arms and overwhelms him. What doesn't make sense is why Luffy keeps using Gatling when it didn't work the first time. Katakuri's counter and victory makes sense because he had more arms. Luffy attacks, but Katakuri zips away. When Katakuri attacks, Luffy tries to zip away, but Katakuri predicts his movements and hits him. That was good. Luffy's speed doesn't work, so he goes for strength with gear 3rd. Smart. Katakuri copies him with a bigger punch and overwhelms him. Luffy's macro strategy was to try to use speed and then strength. Katakuri's macro strategy was to copy Luffy, but do it better. In 880, Luffy is getting beaten up by Katakuri. He evades many of Katakuri's feet before getting kicked. This is questionable because Kata has future vision, so why is he missing? In 881, Luffy continues to evade and take a beating while worrying about mirrors. In 882, Katakuri makes a spear. Luffy is able to avoid the spear attacks. Again, why is Katakuri missing? Katakuri uses flowing mochi to trap him. Luffy tries to use gear 4th, but Katakuri stops the power-up from happening and tries to suffocate him with mirror mochi in 883. Luffy gets out by eating the mochi. That's a good counter. Luffy breaks his shrine with elephant gun. People seeing him eat makes him angry. Katakuri uses squared mochi and this hurts Luffy's hands when they clash. The logic is questionable, but I'll let it slide. Both use Hao Haki in their clash. Luffy is able to get a hit in when Katakuri is angry. Even Luffy is surprised that future vision didn't save him, which brings back my question. Why has Katakuri missed any attacks if he has future vision? Rainfall mochi is met with gear 4th and a successful Kong gun. In 884, Luffy discovers that Katakuri isn't a Logia user, but a Paramecia user that uses future vision to perfectly evade, creating the illusion of a Logia user. That was a great reveal, but because of haki, it doesn't mean as much. If there was no haki, this would be a game-changing moment, because now Luffy can land blows, but with haki, it doesn't change anything. Logia users can't automatically phase through haki attacks anyway, because they take damage. This reveal exposes a flaw in Katakuri's future vision, but the Paramecia reveal means nothing. Another one of Katakuri's macro strategies was to use kenbun haki to slip through all attacks. Now, I'd expect one of Luffy's macro strategies to be to break Katakuri's focus to break his kenbun, but it's not. In gear 4th, Luffy's buso haki trumps Katakuri's. He realizes this as he lands more blows. Katakuri regains composure and begins to slip through attacks again using kenbun haki. Then he traps Luffy's arm in mochi and uses the donuts to land a blow in 885. Power mochi apparently puts his buso haki back on gear 4th's level. Luffy tries to attack, but Katakuri's donuts give him more arms to attack, allowing him to land hits. Gear 4th begins to wear out, so Luffy retreats. He takes a Charlotte hostage while running. Luffy returns in 888 and starts with another Gatling. This is the button mashing. Luffy's only effective move has been gear 4th, so what is he doing? The reason he ran away was to recharge gear 4th and haki. In 891, Luffy keeps trying to fight in his base form. Why isn't he using gear 4th, and why is Katakuri missing some of his attacks? Luffy uses another gear 3rd attack, and this leads to him taking damage. Another dumb decision, but Luffy starts getting a flashback about future vision. One might argue that Katakuri has been missing because of Luffy's future vision, but the only time Luffy tried to use it so far was right before Elephant Gun in this chapter. We see him close his eyes and focus while remembering someone's words. There's no indication that he was using it before. At the end of 892, Luffy gets hit by someone's dart and then takes a hit from Katakuri's spear. In 893, Katakuri continues to beat the crap out of Luffy, only missing some blows. Luffy first effectively uses precognition when dodging the second dart. Katakuri stabs himself to even the cheating his siblings did. In 894, Luffy is able to effectively use future vision to dodge Katakuri's punches, but it's not perfect and square mochi still hurts him. After burning mochi, Luffy is able to land a blow, but if Katakuri is calm, why couldn't he slip through it? Kata lands more hits before Luffy decides to use Gear 4th Snake Man. So what was Luffy's macro strategy from chapter 888 to 894? Ever since he came back from Bound Man, he has had no strategy and was basically just button mashing until he started to remember Rayleigh's training. And even when he started seeing the future, why did he think any of his normal attacks would work when Katakuri already countered Gear 2nd and 3rd at the start of the fight? So far, only Gear 4th attacks have been consistently effective. He shouldn't have been fighting without it. In 894, Snake Man's Python confuses Katakuri and it allows for some free hits. Katakuri uses Sliced Mochi to strike Luffy. Why did this attack land? Luffy was able to dodge attacks in his base form, but he can't dodge in Gear 4th? Questionable. The attack sticks to Luffy and allows for free hits. I don't know why Katakuri didn't stick with this attack until Luffy found a counter. Instead, he goes into a Gatling exchange that leads to both of them taking damage. Luffy uses Black Mamba, but Katakuri is able to dodge, close the distance, and kick Luffy. Again, Luffy taking this hit with his speed is a little questionable. He dodged an attack in chapter 885. That was with Bound Man, which I believe is slower, and without future vision. He also dodged several times in his base form. At the end of this chapter, King Cobra goes against Sliced Mochi. In 896, both fall down, but Luffy gets back up. This fight is not as good as I remember. It's just average or below. There are macro and micro strategies, but they are so simple. I'll start with the macros. Luffy tries speed, Katakuri beats him. Luffy tries strength, Katakuri beats him. So the only way Luffy is able to close these gaps is with a power-up. Even though the gap is closed, the only reason Luffy is able to land hits is because he accidentally angered Katakuri. Once he regains composure, Katakuri is unable to be hit. Kata's macro strategy is to slip through attacks and get in hits. When Luffy comes back, he has no macro strategy and just starts button mashing with attacks that have already failed. Why didn't he wait until Gear 4th recharged? Wasn't that why he ran away to begin with? Then he starts awakening future vision, but his attacks still aren't good enough, so his macro becomes Snake Man to close the speed and power gaps. Python combined with precognition allows Luffy to land hits. He wins by using his strongest and fastest Snake Man attack. So when you step back and see the full picture, Luffy's entire struggle was that he was too weak and slow, so his solution was to get stronger and faster. His opponent also had future vision, so he had to also get future vision to nullify it. This is unbelievably basic, arguably DBZ levels of basic. The most creative part is the future vision, and the counter is to copy the move to cancel it out. Another issue is on Katakuri's side. After Snake Man, Katakuri never slips through any more attacks, despite it being a strategy that Luffy never found a solution for. If you have an effective strategy, why would you stop using it? And Luffy had a solution before Snake Man, make him lose focus. Why didn't Luffy ever intentionally use this? In 885, Luffy says, "You will expose your weakness again." You'd think that Luffy would try to bring it out, but he doesn't. He only accidentally broke his focus with the shrine. When Luffy came back and started button mashing, a good idea would have been to make him angry so that he can land hits, but instead, this tactic never comes up again. Now, micro strategies. First off, why was Katakuri missing so much before Luffy got future vision? That's inconsistent. Every time Katakuri plans to slip through attacks, his future vision is perfect, but when he wants to attack, suddenly his future vision is inaccurate. One of the Mochi Man's micro strategies was to overwhelm Luffy with multiple fists. Luffy never found a counter to this, so why didn't he spam it? It works at the start and against Bound Man. Why did he ever stop using it? Another strategy was slipping through an attack and trapping Luffy in his body. Why didn't he spam this as well? It always led to free hits. Luffy eating the mirror mochi was a good counter. Katakuri squared mochi was a good advantage, but Luffy never found a counter to it and won anyway. Luffy taking a hostage and retreating was smart. Python was a clever attack. Sliced Mochi was a good attack, bringing back the sticking, but once again, Luffy never found a counter, so why didn't he spam this? Also, why was Luffy taking so many hits in Snake Man? I assume it isn't slower than Bound Man. Bound Man only took damage when Mochi used sticking or extra arms, two moves Luffy never countered, but Snake Man was taking hits from weaves and regular strikes despite having future vision. Inconsistent writing. I'm not going to question the stamina of either combatant, because that is simply up to the writer. It is a little disappointing how Luffy just won because of endurance and not because he actually outsmarted or overpowered Katakuri. Button mashing syndrome isn't as prevalent in this fight, but it does appear. I place Katakuri's refusal to rely on effective macro or micro strategies under button mashing syndrome. Instead of the characters using what's effective, they show off new moves. What's worse is that Katakuri had two phases. In his first phase, he was just mocking Luffy by copying him, but once he used Mirror Mochi, he entered phase 2 where he stopped underestimating Luffy. So he says. Yet not only does he not spam his most effective strategies, he holds back on using his strongest moves. Right after Luffy breaks out, he uses squared mochi. I'll give that to him, but later down the line, he brings out donuts, power mochi, and sliced mochi. Why did he wait to use these stronger techniques if he was no longer underestimating Luffy? Since Sliced is his final attack and only used in the last phase, I assume that this is his trump card. If he was taking Luffy seriously, he shouldn't have saved this move up until Luffy got stronger. He even worries about Luffy getting stronger at the end of 892, before Snake Man, yet he keeps this move in his pocket. And then Haki. The only good thing Haki did was allow Katakuri to imitate Logia users and slip through attacks, but it adds a negative later on to counter this positive. The only reason the two can even strategize is because their Haki levels are even. Nearly every attack has buso Haki in it. Luffy needed to get his kenbun Haki on Katakuri's level before he was allowed to win. This almost undoes the aforementioned positive. This also removes the potential strategy of exploiting Katakuri's anger, which is a better strategy. Haki also reduced the impact of the Paramecia reveal because, like I said, it made no difference if Mochi was Logia or Paramecia, since Haki can harm both. Haki wasn't that harmful in this particular fight, but it barely helped and almost undid that help. Maybe you're saying, but Yume, Naruto did the same thing in Lee vs Gaara and Naruto vs Sasuke, and you like those fights. There's a similarity. Both are hand-to-hand fights where power-ups change the tides, but there's also a major difference. 1. Most of the power-ups were in the combatant's arsenal before they used it, and 2. There was good CQC. Lee had all of his gates before the Gaara fight, we just didn't know it. All of Sasuke's power-ups were accounted for. Stage 1 was already used before against Zaku. Sasuke's incomplete Sharingan was made clear by Kakashi and Itachi's Sharingans, so his power-up was only a matter of time. Stage 2 was foreshadowed by the Sound 4 using it and Sasuke using it when he broke the coffin. Naruto's initial Jinchuriki form was used against Haku. His one-tailed form was the only power-up that was not foreshadowed. In Luffy's case, him being able to use Future Vision wasn't foreshadowed. Snake Man is dubious. Having different forms of Gear 4th was established by the other forms, but his acceleration power wasn't foreshadowed, and the CQC isn't good for most of the fight. In conclusion, this fight is not that good, and it's only partially Haki's fault. The fight is plagued with button mashing syndrome, Haki levels being a requirement, and inconsistencies in the effectiveness of powers. But even without those flaws, the macro strategy boils down to matching the opponent in speed, strength, and Haki. That is extremely simple, and there isn't any good CQC strategizing to make up for the lack of quality macro.